What's good, y'all? And welcome to another preseason preview video. In today's video, we're going over the Sacramento Kings. In case this is your first preseason preview video of mine that you're seeing, basically what I do is go over all the moves that happened in the offseason, give a little recap on that, and then look into the future and try to see what we can expect from this team. Before we get into it, I want to remind you guys to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. After you're done with this, make sure you check out the link in the description. It'll bring you to a playlist of all the other teams I've already covered so far. And without further ado, let's take a look at the additions the Sacramento Kings made this offseason. Sacramento made arguably one of the biggest moves this offseason, bringing in DeMar DeRozan in a sign and trade. But they also had a pretty solid draft as well, drafting Devin Carter out of Providence. If you're interested in my full thoughts on the DeMar DeRozan sign and trade, I made a video talking about that in depth when it first happened, so make sure you check out that one. But when you look at DeMar as just a player coming on to the Kings, they got better. They added more talent. And with the Kings being such an offensive-oriented team, they're really doubling down on that, bringing in a talent like DeMar. I like what he brings scoring-wise just as himself, but also playmaking-wise. I feel like he's pretty underrated, and he'll be able to fit into this team very well. You can talk about fit with his spacing or with his defense, but regardless, like I said, they brought in more talent. They elevated their team, and in a Western Conference that's super competitive, that means something. We'll talk a little bit more about DeMar DeRozan later in the video, but I do want to highlight their other pickup of Devin Carter. I've said before that I'm not a big college basketball fan. I really wait till they get drafted to really deep dive into the rookies. But my roommate is a pretty big St. John's fan, so I watched some Providence games this year, or last year, I guess, and Devin Carter jumped out the screen of just being an NBA player. He moves and looks like a true NBA player. Now, it does suck because he had to get surgery on a torn labrum, so he's going to be out for at least 6 months. So don't expect him to be playing anytime before like mid to late January, and then at that point, he still might need a little bit more time to recover. But when he is fully healthy, he's really going to be a perfect fit for this Kings team. He is a pure scorer and can get the offense going pretty much on any level. He's great at finishing at the rim, super strong, can go through contact. The three-point shot is there, and he has a pretty high volume on it as well. So offensively, I think he'll be able to perfectly fit into this Kings super-powered offense. But then he also adds a little bit of a defensive element to him too. He's only 6'3", but he's got super long arms, and he is super strong, so he's able to kind of play a little bit bigger than what he is, and defensively he will get after you. I think he averaged almost 2 steals and a block in college. He, like I said, jumped off the screen when watching him against other college opponents, and I'm super excited to see what he could do on the NBA level. Of course, the Kings couldn't bring in all of these guys without losing a few also, so let's take a look at the guys they lost this offseason. The Kings didn't really lose anyone to free agency, but they were pretty active in the trade market. Harrison Barnes and Chris Duarte were included in the DeMar DeRozan sign-and trade. Harrison Barnes got redirected to the Spurs, and Chris Duarte is on the Bulls. And then Davion Mitchell was a part of a trade that sent him to the Toronto Raptors. I thought Harrison Barnes was a pretty good fit with this Kings team. He added some three-point shooting and spacing on offense as just a spot-up guy, and then he gave them a little bit of perimeter defense. He gave them some size at the wing, all things that are pretty important in the modern NBA. But I don't blame the Kings for including him in the trade for DeMar DeRozan because they did get the better player, the more talented player, and he was one of their only guys that had a bigger contract that wasn't one of their true core pieces. So if they wanted to improve the roster, it was either going to be him or it was going to be Kevin Huerter. They decided to go with Harrison Barnes. And then when you look at their other losses of Davion Mitchell and Chris Duarte, I don't think they'll be missing either of those guys too much. It seemed like once Keon Ellis started elevating his play and solidified himself as a guy that needs to get minutes on this team, Davion Mitchell started to dwindle down a little bit. Keon took those minutes away from Davion, and it makes sense because they do kind of fill similar roles, and I do think that's a big reason on why the Kings ended up moving him, because they thought Keon could do a lot of the same things, but even at a higher level. And then Chris Duarte, I like the length that he gave the Kings on the wing spot, but he never really has been able to find his footing in the NBA just yet, so I don't really think the Kings are going to be missing out on him. Now that we have an idea of what this Kings team looks like, let's take a look at a potential rotation we could be seeing. Not too many changes to the rotation here in Sacramento. The starting lineup is largely the same, except now we have the newcomer DeMar DeRozan. Alongside him, we have De'Aaron Fox, Keon Ellis, Keegan Murray, and Domantas Sabonis. And then running the bench unit, we have Malik Monk alongside Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and Alex Len. So obviously the Kings have their new big three of De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, and Domantas Sabonis. I'm really interested to see how those three play out on the court, and I will be tuning into Sacramento Kings games early in the season just to kind of watch their dynamics together. But I think the Kings did a good job of adding role players that will give different lineups, different looks when you swap them in and out. Obviously, you got the big three that are going to be playing heavy minutes, but those other two lineup spots, I think they can add in different players to add in a bunch of different lineups. A key example of this is I personally have Keon Ellis starting at the shooting guard spot here. It could be Kevin Huerter. I could definitely see a world where that is the case because he has been the starting two guard since really coming over to Sacramento. I know he got hurt towards the end of last season and Keon kind of stepped up and played great at that two guard, but I could see it go either way. You know, Keon, he brings them a little bit more defense, and I like that aspect of it, especially with losing Harrison Barnes, but also I could see them still wanting the spacing and the shooting of Kevin Huerter, especially his great chemistry with Sabonis. I could see it going either way. Personally, though, I like the defensive aspect of Keon. But then just looking at different lineups they can run out there, I think their death lineup is going to be a lineup of De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, and Sabonis. Honestly, I have no idea how you're supposed to stop that offensively. All five of those guys can get you a bucket pretty much at any given moment. I will say in that lineup, it's very taxing on Keegan Murray defensively because he's really the only true positive defender in that lineup in my eyes. But offensively, like I said, I don't know if people are going to even be able to keep up, even though defensively it's a little shaky. They can even go a jumbo lineup of De'Aaron, DeMar, Keegan, Trey Lyles, and Sabonis. They don't really miss out too much on their spacing either. They have solid spacing there. Super big lineup. Again, defensively, it looks a little bit weird, but overall, like the different looks that they can give teams, I think is a lot. And when you pair this personnel with a great offensive-minded coach like Mike Brown, I feel like things could really get crazy. I'm super excited to watch the Kings this year to see what they are going to be looking like. And now that we have an idea of what this team looks like, let's take a look at their biggest strength. This should be a pretty obvious one, but this Kings team does not lack offensive punch at all. As you can see here, they had almost 3 players average over 20 points per game, and they have 5 players that averaged over 15 points per game. There could be an argument that the Kings have the best offensive big three in the NBA just because all 3 of these guys are super productive offensively, and I like the fact that they kind of all do it in their own different ways. Starting off with their leading scorer last year, De'Aaron Fox, I like the fact that he kind of has his different change of pace and a little bit of faster offense. It's, you know, first off in transition, I don't think there's a single player that can keep up with him or stop him in transition, but even in the half court, he has that fast twitch to just get to the rim and finish or get to the free throw line. Also, his mid-range pull-up is immaculate. This season too, he even added the three-point shot and brought that to another level, shooting it at almost a career high and having a career high volume. You know, when he gets that 3-level scoring going, it's not much you can really do to stop him. Then you got Sabonis, who gets his work in the post. You know, he'll post you up, back you down, hit you with that little flip shot, or, you know, lay, finish through the contact. He also, of course, has his playmaking, which I think is his biggest strength, whether that's playmaking out of the post or on the perimeter, scanning the offense, doing his dribble handoffs, his pick and rolls. Offensively, he gives you a lot that way. And then DeMar DeRozan, their newcomer who they're adding in, he is more of the methodical ISO, get you a bucket type of guy. Of course, he is the master of the mid-range, but he also is great at getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. And I think the biggest overarching thing that all 3 of them have is they are all above average playmakers. So I don't think it's going to be an issue of the ball sticking or anything like that, or they have to go through like your turn, now my turn, now your turn. I feel like it's going to be a pretty fluid offense still, where they're going to be playing off each other a lot. passing the ball, making that extra pass to get the open look. I feel like they are going to click pretty solidly together. And I'm saying all of this without bringing up Malik Monk, who in my eyes was the 6th man of the year last year. I believe he still finished top 3, but off the bench, what he brings for them offensively is super important, both scoring the ball, but then also playmaking. Last year, he was fantastic in the pick and roll. I've never really seen Malik Monk operate that well in it like I did see him last year, so hopefully he's able to bring some of that playmaking this year as well. And the cherry on top is surrounding all of these super talented offensive players with great catch and shoot options like Keegan Murray or Kevin Huerter or Trey Lyles. They have all of these guys that can just kind of catch the ball, space the floor for them, even attack, close out if they need. I really do think this Kings offense could be one of the top in the league again. No team is perfect though, as we all know, so now it's time to take a look at the opposite side and look at their biggest weakness. I do think the Kings will struggle defensively this season. As you see here, I have Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis's name listed here. These are the two guys I am most confident in defending on this roster. Besides that though, there's not many other great options. I do want to start off by saying I am really high on both Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis defensively, at least. I like the fact that both of them have great size. Obviously, Keegan Murray last year made a huge jump. I believe he was like the best ISO defender when you look at numbers last season, which is incredible. His 6'8" frame, you just saw in that picture, he was guarding Steph Curry. There's some games he will guard the guard like Steph or like Donovan Mitchell or some guy like that. And then in the next game, he'll turn around and guard LeBron James and Jason Tatum. The versatility he brings defensively is super important, and him making that jump last year was a big part of the Kings taking a jump defensively as a team, and he's going to have to stay at that level for them to still be solid. Same thing kind of with Keon Ellis. Last year, he kind of emerged as a great perimeter defender and a great role player in the NBA. So this season, he's going to need to keep that up and maybe even jump up another level as well. He is 6'6", so at a guard spot, that is incredible size. He's a very disciplined defender. Both of these guys, I think, are going to be super important defensively for the Kings. But like I said, when you look at the roster beyond those top two guys, there's not much there. I think De'Aaron Fox is a solid defender at the guard spot. I think his athleticism gives him the ability to lock in and get a stop here and there, but also with his super heavy load offensively, it's kind of unfair to expect him to exert all of that energy on that side of the court and then turn around and pick up full court or give 100% effort 100% of the time defensively. I just don't think that's going to happen. And then you look at the other two members of their big three of Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan. If we're calling a spade, both of them are pretty bad defenders. And I think the hardest part about it is both of them will be getting pretty heavy minutes. On top of that, Sabonis being a center that is a pretty bad defender. The center is the most important position defensively, and the fact that your center can't defend, it makes it just harder overall on your defense. And then when you look off their bench, they don't really have too many players that are positive defenders either. Guys like Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, I don't look at any of those guys as plus defenders. I will say Alex Len, I think, is pretty solid as a backup center. Again, though, the only thing is Sabonis plays such heavy minutes. He's probably only be getting like around 10 minutes a game. In those 10 minutes, he's pretty good. But that's not enough to really make a super big impact, I feel like. Like I was just saying before, though, with the Kings' offense being so good, I could see on a lot of nights they just run teams out the gym and just outscore them. But their defense is kind of what stops me from really putting them in a top tier out west, because a lot of the other teams can score, but they can also defend. And now it is time for my ceiling, floor, and expectations for the Sacramento Kings. Starting off with their ceiling, I could see them being as high as the 6th seed. And I know 6th seed might sound low, but I think that's just more a testament to how good the Western Conference is. I feel like in every video that I'm covering a Western Conference team, I have to reiterate how solid and how deep the Western Conference really is. But like I said, their lack of defensive personnel really is what's stopping me from putting them over teams like the Thunder, Nuggets, Grizzlies even. There's a few of those teams that I think are just in a tier above the Kings when I look at their roster on paper, so that just stops me from putting them really anywhere higher than the 6th seed. When it comes to playoffs, I mean, when you're in that 6-3 matchup, it's not too big of an upset. I could see them being super competitive, but I don't think they would be able to pull it off. So I feel like at their ceiling, they are a first round exit. Then for the floor, I see them being as low as the 10th seed and making the play-in tournament. I do think that it would be pretty difficult for them to go out and win both play-in tournament games on the road, so I could see them missing the playoffs entirely. But my expectations for the Kings is probably around that 8th seed, still in the play-in tournament, but in that upper tier of it, so they only have to win one game, and they have 2 chances to win that one game and still make the playoffs. In that situation, I do think they would win at least one of their 2 play-in games and make the playoffs. In that case, though, they would have a pretty uphill battle of a 1-8 matchup or a 2-7 matchup, and again, like I said before, it'd be pretty rough for them to pull off that upset. So I do think that they will be a first round exit. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments where you think the Kings will finish off this season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social medias, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.